Ella was small even for her own people. She was a quarry, a gentle race with thin arms and large, shining eyes. On this bright morning in the intergalactic marketplace, she stood at her little table with colorful handmade trinkets lined up in rows. Her voice was quiet but sweet as she tried to get the attention of the many travelers passing by. Most of them were much bigger than Ella. Some smiled at her, some ignored her, and some just stared at the strange, delicate items she made, her. Bestseller was a tiny glass sphere filled with swirling colors. When held in the light, it changed colors and cast bright spots on the table. A few curious shoppers stopped, picked it up, and sometimes gave her a coin in exchange. Ella's eyes always lit up when that happened, as she would bow her head politely, thanking them in a soft voice, but not everyone in the market was kind. Zarak, a Vorn, was one of the biggest aliens in the city. The Vorn were known for their strength and tough skin. Zarak was twice as tall as Ella, with sharp blue scales and eyes that always seemed angry. Today he walked through the market with his chin high and a smirk on his lips. He spotted Ella at her table, and his eyes narrowed in amusement. Zorak pushed his way through the crowd, making people move aside. Some frowned at him, but nobody wanted to get in his way. He stopped right in front of Ella's table and crossed his arms, looking down at her like she was a bug. His voice was loud and harsh, making people turn to watch. "Look at this, a little quarry selling shiny toys. Do you think anyone wants this trash?" he asked, grinning. Some in the crowd laughed, but most just looked away. Zorak picked up one of the glass spheres and held it up in front of Ella's face, shaking it until the colors spun wildly inside. Ella did not say anything. She kept her hands folded and her head low, hoping he would just go away. Zorak laughed. "Maybe I should buy them all and smash them right here. Then you can go home and stop pretending you're important." At the edge of the market, Carter watched the scene unfold. Carter was a human, one of the few who worked as a security officer in the busy marketplace. He wore simple clothes and kept his badge hidden, wanting to blend in so he could see what really happened among the crowds. He had dark hair, a gentle face, and a calm way about him. Most people hardly noticed him. But he noticed everything. Carter felt a knot in his chest as he watched Zorak pick on Ella. He knew the rules were clear. Don't get involved unless there was real danger. The marketplace was supposed to be safe for everyone. But sometimes he thought following the rules did not feel right. Zorak continued to tease Ella, holding her trinkets just out of her reach. "Maybe you're too small to see what real work looks like," he said. "Maybe you should find a job more your size." He put the glass sphere down but knocked it so it rolled off the table. It hit the ground and shattered. The crowd gasped and backed away. Ella bent down, carefully picking up the broken pieces. Her fingers were shaking. She tried to hold back tears. Zorak just laughed, enjoying the show. Carter could not take it anymore. He walked closer, pretending to look at another table nearby, but his eyes were on Ella and Zorak. He watched how Zorak's shadow covered Ella's small form, how she looked so alone. Carter's hands tightened into fists in his pockets, but he waited. He wanted to help, but he did not want to make things worse for Ella. Zorak finally grew bored. He dropped the last trinket back on the table and walked away, still laughing. The crowd slowly drifted apart. A few people gave Ella sad looks, but no one stopped to help. When Zorak was gone, Carter quietly stepped up to Ella's table. He picked up the last glass sphere that was still whole and held it to the light. "This is beautiful," he said softly. "Did you make it yourself?" Ella nodded, her eyes wide and unsure. "Yes," she said quietly. "I make all of them." "Do you have more of these?" Carter asked, trying to smile. "I would like to buy one." Ella looked surprised. She dug in her bag and found a new sphere, her hands still shaking. Carter took it and handed her a coin, then carefully wrapped the sphere in a soft cloth. "Thank you," Ella whispered. "You're the first person today who has been kind." Carter nodded, his voice gentle. "People can be cruel sometimes, but your work is special. Don't let someone like Zorak stop you." Ella managed a small smile. "Thank you for saying that." As Carter turned to leave, he paused. "If you ever need help, I'm usually nearby." Just look for me." He gave a quick smile and melted back into the crowd, watching from a distance. Ella looked at the coin in her hand and the broken pieces on the ground. She took a deep breath, stood up straight, and began to arrange her table again. She did not want Zorak to win. She did not want to be afraid. She wanted to keep selling her trinkets, to show the market that even someone small could be brave. Carter kept an eye on her from afar. He knew Zorak might come back. But he was ready now. The human was watching, and he would not let anything happen to the tiny quarry girl again. As the sun moved across the sky, the market grew busier. More people stopped at Ella's table, drawn by the way the colored glass shone in the light. Some were kind and some were not, but Ella faced them all with quiet courage. And somewhere, always just out of sight, Carter was there, making sure that this part of the galaxy was a little safer for everyone, even for the smallest voice in the crowd. After that day in the market, Ella did not forget Zorak's harsh words. Sometimes she would remember his laugh and the way he had smashed her glass sphere. But each morning she still went to the same place and set up her table. She told herself that she could not hide because of one cruel alien. Her trinkets deserved to be seen, and she liked meeting new people, even if some were not kind. Ella started to notice that a few more shoppers came to her table now. Maybe it was because she stood up straighter, or maybe word had spread about what Zorak did. Some people wanted to show support for her. A few even asked if she was all right. She would always smile and say yes, and then she would show them the best way to hold her glass spheres to catch the light. As days passed, Zorak did not return, but Ella sometimes saw him walking in the distance. Whenever she noticed him, her heart would beat faster. She wondered if he would try to ruin her day again. Still, she tried not to let it show. She was determined to keep working, no matter who watched her. Carter kept coming by the market too. Sometimes he stopped at a fruit stand, sometimes at a shop selling tools, but he always passed by Ella's table. Most of the time he did not speak. He would just nod at her and she would nod back, feeling a little safer when he was there. Once he bought another glass sphere, even though she knew he already had one. He smiled and said, "This one is for a friend." One afternoon, a group of young kids from another world stopped at Ella's table. They were curious and polite, asking her questions about how she made her trinkets. Ella loved to tell them the stories behind each design. One was a small animal carved from a blue stone. Another was a bracelet made from pieces of colorful metal. The kids listened, and then one girl chose a glass sphere to take home. Just as the girl was about to pay, Zorak appeared again. This time he looked angry. He saw the group around Ella's table and pushed his way to the front. The kids shrank back. Zorak pointed at the girl with the glass sphere and said, "Why are you wasting your money on this junk? Only fools buy from her." Ella stood between Zorak and the kids. She tried to look brave, but her hands shook. "They can buy what they like," Ella said. Her voice was quiet but clear. "Please don't make trouble." Zorak sneered at her. "What will you do if I do?" At that moment, Carter walked up. He stood beside Ella, facing Zorak. He did not raise his voice. He just looked Zorak in the eye. "And the market is for everyone," Carter said. "If you can't be polite, you should leave." Zorak stared at Carter. He did not move. For a long moment, no one spoke. The crowd held its breath. Then Zorak laughed, but it sounded fake. "I'm not afraid of you, human," he said, but he took a step back. "This isn't over." Zorak turned and walked away. The crowd slowly started to talk again. The girl with the glass sphere gave Ella her coin and smiled. The kids thanked Ella and Carter before leaving. When they were gone, Ella let out a breath she had been holding. Carter watched Zorak go, then looked at Ella. "Are you all right?" he asked. Ella nodded, but she was shaking a little. "Thank you. I was afraid he would hurt those children." "You did the right thing," Carter said. "You stood up to him. That's not easy." Ella smiled a little. "It's easier when you are here." Carter smiled back, then noticed that some of the other market sellers were watching them. He nodded at them, and a few nodded back. Carter saw that Zorak was standing at the edge of the market, looking back at them with anger in his eyes. Carter made a note to watch him more closely. As the day went on, more people came to Ella's table. Some thanked her for being brave. Some bought her trinkets. A few even brought her small gifts, a flower, a sweet drink, a shiny button. Ella was surprised and touched. She began to feel that she was not so alone after all. Later that evening, when the market was quiet and most people had gone home, Carter returned to see if Ella needed help packing up. He found her sitting on a bench, carefully wrapping up her unsold items. She looked tired but peaceful. "Do you want help carrying those?" Carter asked. Ella looked up and smiled. "If you don't mind." Carter took a small box from her, and they walked together through the empty market. The sky above was filled with the soft light of distant stars. Ella told Carter about her family, who lived in a small home not far from the market. She said she came to the market because she wanted to help them, to show she could be strong even though she was small. "You are strong," Carter said. "I see it every day." Ella looked down, a little shy. "Thank you." As they walked, Carter noticed shadows moving in the distance. He stopped and looked around, but it was just a stray animal searching for food. Still, Carter stayed alert. He had a feeling Zorak was not done yet. When they reached Ella's home, Ella thanked Carter again. "I hope tomorrow will be quiet," she said. "Whatever happens, I'll be nearby," Carter said. "Don't worry." Ella waved goodbye and went inside. Carter watched the door close before heading back through the city. He thought about Zorak and the way the big alien looked at him. Carter knew he had made an enemy, but he did not regret it. He cared more about making the market safe for people like Ella than about his own comfort. That night, Ella sat by her window, looking at the stars. She thought about the day, about Zorak, about the kind children, and about Carter. She hoped that one day the market would be a place where even the smallest person could feel safe. Until then, she promised herself she would keep going, one day at a time, with courage and hope. Zorak did not forget what happened at the market. Every time he saw Carter near Ella's table, he felt angry inside. He was not used to being told what to do, especially not by a human. He thought about ways to get back at Carter and scare Ella. But he knew the human was always watching. Zorak started to plan something bigger. He spoke in quiet voices with other Vorn, trying to get them on his side. Ella, for her part, tried to act as if nothing had happened. She still came to the market each day, setting up her table early and arranging her trinkets in careful lines. The other sellers seemed friendlier now. Some offered her food or helped her carry things. She felt stronger when she remembered Carter's words and the support from others. Still, deep down, she was afraid that Zorak might return with more trouble. Carter noticed that Zorak was watching from a distance more often. He could feel the tension growing, like a storm coming closer. Each morning, Carter checked the whole market before most people arrived. He looked for any signs that Zorak or his friends were nearby. Sometimes he would see Zorak standing at the far end of the street staring. Carter always made sure to be close to Ella when the crowds grew thick. One busy afternoon, Zorak came back to the table. This time he was alone, but his steps were heavy and angry. Ella saw him first. Her hands paused in midair as she tried to finish tying a ribbon around a new bracelet. Zorak stopped right in front of her table, his arms crossed. "Still here, little quarry?" Zorak said, his voice sharp. "I see you have made some friends. Do you think they can keep you safe forever?" Ella took a breath and stood up straight. "I am not afraid of you," she said quietly, even though her heart beat fast. "Please leave me alone. I only want to work." Zorak leaned closer, his shadow falling across the table. "You should be afraid," he said, his eyes cold. "Because I am not finished with you." Carter saw Zorak and came over quickly. He stepped between Zorak and Ella, his face calm but serious. "Zorak, leave her alone," Carter said. "This is your last warning." Zorak glared at Carter. For a moment, it seemed he might try to fight. The crowd nearby grew quiet, watching. But Zorak stepped back, his eyes full of hate. "You will regret this, human," he said, then turned and pushed through the crowd, disappearing into the busy street. Ella's hands shook, but she did not cry. Carter looked at her gently. Are you all right? I think so, Ella said, her voice small. Thank you for standing up for me. Carter nodded. You are not alone. If you need anything, you know where to find me? For the rest of the day, Carter stayed near Ella's table. The market felt tense, but nothing more happened. When the market finally closed, Carter offered to walk Ella home again. She accepted, and they walked together quietly under the soft evening lights. As they walked, Ella looked up at Carter. Do you think Zorak will come back? Carter was honest. I think he will try something, but I will be ready, and so will the others. Ella nodded. She was tired but thankful. She felt stronger knowing she had friends now. The next morning, Carter visited the market before sunrise. He spoke with a few other sellers, asking them to watch for Zorak or any of his friends. Many agreed. Some said they would stand near Ella's table if Zorak came back. Carter felt a bit of relief, knowing he was not alone in keeping the peace. The market was busy that day. People from many planets came and went, their voices mixing in the warm air. Ella smiled and greeted customers, showing them her trinkets. She started to feel almost normal again. For a while, it seemed like Zorak would not come back. Then, just as the market was about to close, Zorak appeared at the edge of the street. This time, he was not alone. Two other Vorn walked with him, both tall and strong. Carter saw them first, and moved quickly to stand near Ella's table. The other sellers who had promised to help gathered closer too, pretending to look at goods but really watching the scene. RK walked straight up to Carter. Move aside, human, he said loudly. This is not your fight. Carter stood his ground. The market is safe for everyone. If you want trouble, you will have to go through me. One of the other Vorn laughed, but Zorak did not. He was angry, his fists clenched. You think you can protect her forever? You think you are stronger than us? Carter shook his head. Strength is not just about size or muscle. Sometimes it's about doing the right thing. Zorak scowled. He wanted to fight, but he saw the other sellers standing nearby. He could tell they would not let him win easily. With a loud growl, he turned and walked away with his friends, pushing people aside as they left. A cheer rose from the market crowd. Quiet at first, then louder. People clapped for Ella and Carter. Ella smiled, her fear fading for the first time in days. She looked at Carter, her eyes shining with gratitude. That night, Carter and Ella sat together in a quiet corner of the market. Ella told Carter stories about her home world and her dreams for the future. Carter listened, happy to see her smile. He promised himself he would always look out for her, no matter what Zorak tried next. Rak, angry and embarrassed, watched them from the shadows. He was not finished. In his mind, he started to make new plans, a plan that would make Carter pay for getting in his way, and teach Ella a lesson she would never forget. Zorak was furious after leaving the market. He walked with his two friends, their heavy steps making the ground shake. The other Vorn tried to calm him, but Zorak would not listen. He wanted to teach Carter and Ella a lesson. He wanted everyone to know that no one could embarrass him in front of the whole marketplace. That night, Zorak met secretly with a group of rough aliens in a dark alley behind the market. They spoke in low voices, their faces hidden in the shadows. Zorak told them his plan. He wanted to scare Carter and ruin Ella's business for good. The other aliens agreed, hoping to see a fight and maybe get some rewards from Zorak later. They promised to wait until the market was nearly empty so they would not be seen. Meanwhile, Ella had a better day at the market. More people came to her table, drawn by the story of her bravery and Carter's support. The other sellers helped her too, bringing small treats or helping to set up her table. Ella felt safer now, but she sometimes saw Zorak's shadow in her mind and worried he would come back. Carter watched the market carefully. He could feel the tension, but he tried not to show it. He talked to other sellers, checking if they had seen anything strange. A few said they noticed Zorak talking with other tough-looking aliens. Carter thanked them and decided to stay even later that night, just in case. As the sun went down, the market began to empty. Stalls closed one by one, and the crowds thinned out. Ella packed her trinkets slowly, not wanting to be alone. Carter came over to help her, saying it was no trouble. Together, they loaded her things into her small bag. Suddenly, Carter noticed movement at the edge of the market. A group of big aliens stepped out of the shadows, walking toward them. Zorak led the group, his eyes full of anger. Behind him were the 2 other Vorn and 3 more rough aliens. Carter's heart beat faster. But he did not show his fear. Zio RK called out, "So this is where you hide, little quarry. And you, human, do you still want to protect her? Let's see how strong you really are." Ella felt fear rise inside her, but she stood close to Carter. She did not want him to face Zorak alone. Carter stepped forward, keeping Ella behind him. "Zorak, leave now before you make things worse for yourself," Carter said. "This is not the way." Zorak laughed, a deep sound that echoed through the empty market. "I am not afraid of you, human. You can't fight all of us." As the group moved closer, Carter quickly looked around. Most of the market was empty. But he saw 2 other sellers nearby. One, a tall alien named Ben, nodded and started walking toward them. Another, a kind woman named Claire, pulled out her come to call for help. Zorak's group circled Carter and Ella. The 2 Vorn tried to grab Ella's bag, but Carter blocked their path. "Leave her alone," he said. "If you want to fight, fight me." Zorak smiled cruelly. "Fine. Let's see what you can do." He charged at Carter, swinging his heavy arms. Carter dodged, moving fast. He knew he was not as strong as Zorak, but he was quicker and smarter. He blocked Zorak's punch and pushed him away. One of the other aliens tried to grab Carter from behind, but Carter twisted and broke free. Ben joined in, pulling one of the attackers away from Carter. Claire shouted, warning others to stay back. Ella, seeing the fight, searched for something to help. She found a small stick and waved it at the attackers, trying to distract them. Zorak roared in anger, swinging wildly. Carter ducked and landed a quick punch to Zorak's side. Zorak stumbled but did not fall. The other attackers tried to surround Carter, but Ben helped keep them back. Suddenly, more sellers rushed in, drawn by Claire's call for help. They shouted at Zorak's group, telling them to leave. The attackers, now outnumbered, started to back away. Zorak, breathing hard, glared at Carter and Ella. "This isn't over," he growled, but he turned and ran. His group following. When it was over, Carter checked to make sure Ella was safe. She was shaken but unhurt. Ben and Claire came over, checking on them too. "Thank you," Ella whispered, looking at all the people who had come to help. She realized she was not alone anymore. She had friends, and even in the darkest moment, they stood with her. Carter smiled at Ella. "You were brave," he said. "You stood your ground. That means more than you know." Ella looked at the mess left behind. Some of her trinkets were broken, but most were safe. "I was scared," she admitted, "but I didn't want you to get hurt." "We protected each other," Carter said. "That's what matters." The market sellers worked together to clean up. They fixed Ella's table and picked up what was dropped. Ben and Claire walked Ella home, and Carter walked beside them, always watching for danger. As they went, Ella thanked each person who had helped. She realized that sometimes courage is not just fighting back. It is also accepting help and knowing that you are not alone. That night, Zorak and his group hid in the shadows, licking their wounds. Zorak was more angry than ever, but now he understood that the market was changing. It would not be so easy to scare people anymore. Carter had shown everyone that even one person standing up for what is right can make a difference. Ella went to bed that night feeling tired but hopeful. She knew Zorak might come back, but she also knew she had friends who would stand with her. She promised herself that she would keep selling her trinkets and never let fear decide her future. And somewhere in the city, Carter watched the stars, ready to protect his friends again if he was needed. The next morning, the market was full of whispers. People talked about the fight from the night before. Many shoppers looked at Ella with new respect, and some came to her table just to say they were proud of her. The sellers who had helped during the attack checked on her and Carter, making sure they were safe. Ella felt grateful but still a little nervous. She knew Zorak was not the kind of alien to give up so easily. Carter came early to the market that day. He looked more serious than usual, watching every corner and every group of strangers. He spoke quietly with Ben and Claire, making sure everyone stayed alert. Carter trusted the other sellers now, and they trusted him too. It was like a quiet agreement between friends if one person was in trouble. They would all stand together. Zorak did not show up all morning. The sky grew brighter, and the busy sound of the market returned. Children ran between the tables, laughing. Ella smiled as she sold her trinkets, feeling a bit lighter each hour that passed with no trouble. Just before midday, Zorak appeared at the edge of the market. This time he was alone. His walk was slower, and his eyes were different, not so full of anger, but still dark with pride. He stopped, watching the crowd. Everyone seemed to notice him, and the market grew quiet for a moment. Carter stood beside Ella's table, ready for anything. Zorak took a deep breath and started walking toward Ella and Carter. The crowd watched. Some of the sellers who had helped the night before moved closer, pretending to look at their own goods but really making sure Zorak could not do anything bad. When Zorak reached Ella's table, he looked at her for a long moment. "You are not afraid of me," he said. His voice was not loud this time. Ella shook her head. "I am still afraid sometimes," she answered honestly, "but I will not run away." Zorak looked at Carter, then at the other sellers. "You all think you are strong because you stand together." Carter nodded. "It is not just about being strong. It is about doing what is right." Zorak said nothing for a while. Then he put his hands on the table, leaning close to Ella. "I came here today because I wanted to see if you would still be here. I wanted to see if you had given up." Ella met his eyes. "I'm still here." Zorak gave a slow nod. He looked at the crowd and at the friends standing nearby. "Maybe you are stronger than I thought?" For the first time, Zorak looked unsure. He stepped back from the table and looked down. "I lost yesterday," he said quietly. "Not just the fight. I lost the respect of people who watched. I have never lost like that before." Ella was quiet, not sure what to say. Carter spoke softly. "You can change, Zorak. You do not have to fight everyone. Sometimes you find real strength by helping others." Zorak stood still for a long time. The market watched, waiting to see what he would do. Finally, Zorak nodded again. "Maybe you are right, human. Maybe I should try something new." He turned to go, but paused. "Ella, if you want, I can help you set up your table one day. Maybe I can learn how to make something instead of breaking things." Ella smiled, a little surprised. "If you want to help, you are welcome." Zorak nodded, then walked away slowly. Some of the crowd clapped quietly, not wanting to embarrass him. Carter smiled, proud of both Ella and Zorak. The danger was not gone, but something important had changed. The rest of the day was peaceful. Ella sold many trinkets, and some shoppers asked to hear the story of how she had stood up to Zorak. The children from before came back, excited to see that Ella was safe and happy. Even Ben and Claire stopped by, bringing her fresh food and friendly smiles. As evening came, Carter walked Ella home. They talked about the day, about how things were different now. Ella said she still worried that something might happen again, but Carter promised he and the others would always be there for her. Ella's family welcomed Carter with warm food and thanks. They had heard about the trouble and were proud of their daughter. "You are brave," her mother said, hugging her tightly, "and you have good friends." Ella slept well that night for the first time in many days. She dreamed of a busy market full of friends and laughter with no shadows or fear. When she woke, she felt ready for whatever the new day would bring. Over the next week, Zorak came by the market a few times. He did not cause trouble. Once, he even helped a young seller pick up dropped goods. Carter and the others watched him but did not stop him. Slowly, the market grew peaceful again. People remembered the fight, but they talked more about how everyone had come together than about the trouble itself. Ella's table became a special place in the market. People brought her gifts or left kind notes. She made new friends from many different worlds. Sometimes she saw Zorak standing at the edge of the crowd watching her work. He never tried to hurt her again. Instead, he just watched and sometimes nodded when their eyes met. Carter was proud of how things had turned out. He knew there could always be danger, but he believed in the strength of people working together. He visited Ella's table every day, sometimes buying a new trinket, sometimes just sharing a laugh. He never told her, but he thought of her as one of the bravest people he had ever met. And so the days passed. The market was safer, kinder, and full of hope. Ella worked with a happy heart, and Carter watched over her and the others, always ready to help if trouble returned. Even Zorak learned something new sometimes. Strength was about kindness, not power. The market changed in the weeks after Zorak's last visit. People from many worlds heard about what happened, and some traveled far just to meet Ella and see her trinkets. She became well known not just for her beautiful work, but also for her courage and kindness. Her table was always busy now, with customers and friends stopping to chat or buy gifts. Sometimes Ella would look up and see new faces, but she always remembered the old friends who helped her when things were hard. Zorak became a different presence in the market. At first, he kept to the shadows, only watching. He did not tease anyone or try to cause trouble. Slowly, he started to help the other sellers, lifting heavy boxes or showing visitors around. He did not talk much, but people began to see that he was changing. One day, he quietly placed a small coin on Ella's table and took a glass sphere. He nodded at her and walked away, and Ella smiled, feeling proud that she could forgive him. Carter stayed near the market, still working as a security officer. He felt glad each morning when he saw the busy crowds and the peaceful faces. He knew there would always be new problems, but he also knew the market could handle them. The people had learned to stand together. Carter watched over everyone, but he especially watched Ella, proud of how strong she had become. Ella's family came to visit her table more often. Her mother helped her with new designs, and her younger brother learned to greet customers. Her father, who had been worried before, now told her how proud he was. "You showed us all what courage means," he said. Ella hugged him and felt happy inside. One afternoon, the city held a festival to celebrate peace in the market. There were banners and music, and people danced in the street. Carter walked through the festival, smiling at the happy crowds. When he passed Ella's table, he stopped to buy a new bracelet. "This is for luck," he said, putting it on his wrist. Ella laughed, feeling more at home than ever. Zio, Arake, came to the festival too. He did not try to lead or take charge. Instead, he stood with the other sellers and watched the dancing. When a little child dropped a toy, Zorak picked it up and handed it back gently. The child smiled and thanked him. Zorak nodded, a little shy but pleased. As night fell, lanterns were hung all around the market. The soft light made the glass spheres on Ella's table shine even brighter. Children ran past, chasing the moving colors. Some people stopped to listen as Ella told the story of her first days in the market, how she was afraid but found her courage with the help of friends. Carter stood beside her, smiling. Zorak listened too, standing at the edge of the crowd. After the festival, life at the market felt even safer. The sellers helped each other more, and arguments were rare. Zorak kept helping, and slowly people accepted him as a friend. Sometimes he even joked with the others. He never forgot what he had done, but he tried each day to be better. Ella's business grew. She started making bigger things like hanging lamps and delicate necklaces. Some customers even wanted to learn how she made her glass spheres. Ella was happy to teach anyone who asked. She believed that sharing her skills made the market stronger. Carter's work changed too. He was offered a new job in the city, but he turned it down because he wanted to stay near the market. "I feel at home here," he told Ella one day. "This is where I belong." Ella was glad. She could not imagine the market without him. One day, a group of officials came to the market. They asked Ella, Carter, and Zorak to stand together for a photograph. "We want to remember the people who made our market safe and welcoming," the official said. They all smiled for the camera, and when the picture was finished, Zorak even gave a small laugh. Ella kept a copy of the photo at her table. Every time she felt unsure or scared, she looked at it and remembered that she was never alone. Many seasons Past, the market remained a special place, full of life and hope. Sometimes new trouble came, but the sellers and shoppers always worked together to fix things. Zorak never went back to his old ways. He found happiness in being part of the community, and he told others that kindness was a better path. Ella grew in confidence. Her dreams got bigger. She wanted to travel to other markets, to share her trinkets and her story. Carter promised to help her, and even Zorak offered to carry her heavy bags if she ever needed him. Together they planned new adventures, excited for what the future might bring. Even in the busiest days, Ella never forgot the first time Zorak teased her or the way Carter had watched over her. She was grateful for the friends who helped her stand tall. She knew that as long as people stood together, even the smallest voice could make a difference. The market had become a family, and Ella was proud to be part of it. And so life went on in the bustling intergalactic market. With each sunrise, new stories began, but everyone remembered the story of the tiny quarry girl, the brave human and the arrogant alien who learned to change. It was a story of courage, kindness, and hope, a story that would never be forgotten.